Hi guys, I'm Lara and I'm an autism mom. Um, I just wanted to begin vlogging just to kind of encourage other mothers and fathers and families that are raising someone with autism. Um, now we didn't take the traditional route of how the world says things should be done. We never had our child officially diagnosed by a professional. But I have done a lot of research, and we've been having people tell us he had autism since he was 2, and we just were basically in denial until, for me, it was only a few months ago that I really had to have my eyes opened and be like, okay, I can't deny this anymore. My son is 6 years old. His name's Josiah, and he is just precious. He is hilarious. He does the funniest things, says the funniest things, and he really is unique, and I like the quirkiness about him. I love that aspect of him. Just to give you an idea of what um, I how he displays, we'll say, on the spectrum, the things that we deal with on a daily basis and stuff. My son, if a professional were to know him really well and observe him on a daily basis, one that really, really knew their stuff, they probably put him under the label of pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, which is considered atypical autism. And how they come to that conclusion is there's, so many things on several different areas that they have to meet so many things on that list. And in the social area, he would not meet enough of the criteria to get the classic autism diagnosis. I mean, he lacks social cues as far as he doesn't understand modesty or personal space or things of that nature, manners, but then again, a lot of 6-year-old boys don't. But he loves people. He's actually like super social. Like he'll go up to any child and he just loves everybody. So in that way, he does not meet the criteria, but he's not fully potty trained. He's never, ever pooped on the toilet. We've tried pretty much everything suggested to us, and so far to no avail. Pees himself when he's in pull-ups and overnight. Um, also, speech-wise is the biggest indicator because he is unable to carry on a conversation at this point. He can speak, he can tell you what he wants, verbalize things, but just unable to carry on any sort of conversation at all at this point. And he can read body language and facial expression actually very well, and his eye contact is perfect. So that was really what confused me about the whole thing with autism, because it means within yourself, and he engages you in a lot of things. So he's always like, look mommy. So in that way he's just like any other child. But yeah, it's a speech, it's very severe impairment there. And also he stims, um, not from stress or anything of that nature, but just excitement. Like he'll be doing something and he'll get all excited and flap his hands and make this noise, and flashing lights. And he'll also look at, say, a poster of a car, and in his mind he sees the wheels in motion, so he starts stimming. And that was actually the tip-off when I was on YouTube watching various videos of children with autism who were doing what my son always did, but we always just thought it was a Josiah thing. We'd never seen any of our friends' kids do that. I have since seen one friend's child do that, but he has autism. So also, he's a very fussy eater, although he's getting better. He does have a very limited diet: fish sticks, French fries, tofu. I know that's weird. But, at least now he's at least trying to try things. And he never used to be fussy. He was around 18 months, somewhere around there, he started to get fussy because he used to eat anything and everything. Um, he did the classic lining things up perfectly when he was little. From around 18 months, he started doing that. I have so many pictures of it. He's really good at stacking. He didn't play with toys in the normal manner. Like cars were not like racing around, vroom, vroom. He was parallel parking them, as I called it, lining them up in perfect lines, taking clothespins and stacking them and lining them up, and just doing a lot of that. But we just were like, whatever, normal kids do this too, which some do, but he was quite obsessive about it also. And very, like I say, extremely, amazingly good at lining up things perfectly. Look at it at the corner of his eye to make sure it was straight. And of course, the favorite part of his movies were credits, and he still loves the credits. Um, so, in that way he displays. Now, as far as sensory issues go, it used to be worse when he was younger, but now it's like, okay, he'll just kind of go like this with his ears, and if he hears sounds such as like the dustbuster, vacuum cleaner, power saw, things of that nature, and if he's trying to be, in his own little world of kind of, quoting his movies, he'll kind of, because if you're talking or something's going on, he wants to block that out because he wants to only hear himself. So he does do a lot of quoting of his movies, and echolalia, big thing, he echoes what you say. Like if you say, "How are you, Josiah?" He'll say, "How are you, Josiah?" And, there's a lot of that as well. He's not violent. His temper isn't any worse than mine. That's pretty much where he gets it. It has nothing to do with his autism. It used to be worse, but as he learned to speak more and stuff, he's not as frustrated, I suppose, because he can communicate what he needs. He's not able to fully dress himself. I mean, he's gotten so much better. We've really worked on that. And I don't believe it's necessarily motor skills for him, like to get him to do up snaps and buttons. He just won't pay attention long enough to do it. He was very hyper as a toddler, and he's still quite wound, but most boys are at that age. But he was more so when he was younger. And his attention span, actually, it's kind of weird because it's really short when he's distracted easily. But you get him doing something like making one of his elaborate building things that he does. You can't distract him. I mean, he answers to his name, and you can eventually, but if he's finishing something up, he won't stop until he's get it finished. He gets frustrated if you try to make him stop until it's, done. So I've learned to kind of, okay, just let it finish that, and then, so that's just how he is. But he doesn't self-harm, fortunately. Wasn't really a biter. I mean, he's bit like 3 times ever, which is pretty good for any child. And he was easy to take out into public just recently. I mean, it was very hard up until about maybe a year or two ago. But now, just the last month or so, since we've, had him out with the kids around the neighborhood here, because there's tons of kids here, ever since he's been being socialized, my word, the behavior, it's been a little bit scary. When we go out in public, like if he sees a kid, everything's fine until he sees a kid, and then he sees kids, he wants the child to chase him around, and then he won't listen to me anymore, and it's like chaos. And, his behavior is not as good now that he has been socialized. And it's not that the children are bad he's socializing with, it's just the stimulation. And he doesn't sleep as much now. I mean, he always went to bed like 10:30, 11 at night, and then he was up around 9, which wasn't too bad. I need 9 hours. But he doesn't seem to anymore. So now he's getting up earlier. Today was an exception, but usually it's like he'll be awake in his room till like 11:30, and then he'll be up at like 8 a.m. And I'm like, oh, because I need the 9 hours. And it's hard because I have to go to bed at the same time as him. And then I still don't get the sleep I require. Like it's hard to get myself used to going to bed around 11 when I'm used to staying up an extra hour. So just to get that alone time. But so anyway, I've been considering melatonin, but we shall see. I've been trying to just see if this is going to pass. Um, because he's just excited about the day because, okay, goody, I get to play with kids today. He just, as I say, he loves children, which is a real blessing that we don't have to deal with that aspect that he shies away from people because he's actually quite the opposite. I'm homeschooling him, which is really nice. It can be challenging, but I enjoy it for the most part. It's wonderful and it's good for him because he's still getting socialized, regularly with the children in the neighborhood of all ages. So it's good in that way. But he would be a distraction to the class and he would be distracted. So he can read and he's good at it. He can write. Um, do math, all these things pretty much except for the challenges are the comprehension and language. Obviously, he couldn't read a story and then explain what was going on. He's not able to do that yet. Following instructions, he's gotten so much better the past year, especially since we started homeschooling, really working on these concepts more. But yes, he's improved greatly, but he still has a challenge with too many things said to him at once on what you want him to do, and some basic concepts he still really struggles with, like underneath and over and things of that nature. So, but he has improved greatly, and we never put him through any sort of therapy, but again, we were in denial. So that, of course, is something else we'd suffer criticism for. But, we really have tried to follow God's leading in this. And there are many factors anyway. It wouldn't have worked out that we would have been able to put him through therapy anyway until he was about 4 because of where we were living and the such. But we've got basically where I'm living in this province in Canada, um, once they're school age, once they're 5, it's really limited what help you can get even with a diagnosis, um, unfortunately. So we have a speech therapist that I work with my son, but she helps me with the material and just kind of gives me some guidance. So it's nice, and if I need the support, she's there and I can call her. So that's really been nice to have, to know that she's there. So, but I do the actual legwork, and that's fine because I know my son and I know how he learns, and he is progressing. He's always progressing, so that's really wonderful. And yes, I've more or less been on my own. I'm not in any support groups. I'm just not into that kind of thing. Anyways, but and I don't want the negativity of, oh, my child will never do this or that. I really like to just try to let God say what my child can and cannot do, instead of what man says my child can and cannot do. And I find, support groups, it would be a temptation to just allow the negative to overwhelm you. And even reading articles, you got to chew up the meat and spit out the bones, which is what I try to do, and just believe that my child is going to do what God says he's going to do, and he's going to fulfill that purpose God has for him, and he will, just as your child will. So anyway, so I just kind of wanted to introduce myself and my child, and I've probably forgotten all sorts of things he does. But anyway, I guess, so that you'll understand what, where we're at, what we deal with and stuff. And, so that a lot of you can see that you do relate to me. And so anyways, I just wanted to keep this vlog very honest, very real, and not pretend, that everything's always wonderful. We sometimes, you know, pretend that it is, and it's not. I mean, it's not. It's hard, and we're all coming from different places, because there's people who have children who are severe, fecal smearing, screaming at the top of their lungs because of severe sensory issues, and totally nonverbal, perhaps even seemingly totally non-responsive, at least on the outside they seem to be. That's a big difference from someone who has a child with high functioning autism that is completely verbal, but basically just a little quirky and socially, like having challenges socially. There's a big difference. Not that I'm saying there aren't hard times with the child, perhaps with the Asperger's or whatever, but I'm just saying it would be a lot harder to deal with a child who, you know, that you're going to have them with you the rest of their lives and yours, because they're not going to necessarily, be able to do these things on their own. But God, again, God can do miracles, and we cannot give up any hope, and we just have to cling to those promises He's given us, and that He will give us sufficient strength to deal with these things day to day. So, anyways, so I'm hoping that I will get to know some of you along the way, and that you will find encouragement through my struggles and my victories, and the struggles and victories of my child as well, and our family. All right. So anyway, that's all I've got for now. I've already gone on and on, but hopefully from now on the vlogs will be a little bit shorter. It's just, this is our first one, and I'm not sure how often I'm going to vlog. I guess it really depends. I don't want to set a commitment, too hard on myself, like, oh, every day, that would be a bit much and whatever. And probably there will be phases, more frequent, and then you get busy. Life gets busy. But anyway, so we shall see how it goes. And yeah, blessings.